So today I want to create a task list for my project. Last time I created a notebook for the project, and now I want to go through the notebook and all the notes that I still have everywhere on my devices and so on, and transfer whatever is actionable into actual tasks so that I have a sort of project plan which I can follow along. For this I am using a process that is very much inspired by Getting Things Done, the productivity system, which basically works for admin tasks and stuff. It's a bit altered, but it works for most other kind of work too. So I am translating it into a writing environment. And the overall goal for this whole session is actually to then going forward always know what I should be working at. So what we're looking at is how to take notes, how to set up a task list, and finally how to use the calendar in this system. So as you can imagine, the note-taking is really about gathering ideas and input whenever it comes up, and to systemize it in a way that it becomes so automatic that you do it all the time and you do it instinctively, and basically not to let ideas get lost when you have them. For me, I take all my notes on my phone, mostly because obviously I always have it handy, but also because this gives me the distinction between everything that is notes on my phone is still to be processed. So it's all stuff where I still have to decide, is this maybe something that goes into the draft, or does it go into the notebook, or does it go into the task list? So it's useful to have all that stuff on my phone, then it's easier to process and I don't always have to sort. As for the note-taking itself, what I do is basically I always take notes. For example, when I watch a movie or read a book and I have something in there that either it annoys me and I would do it differently, I take a note on that, or if it's an idea that would be a good starting point to look at for my own story, so stuff like that. And also what I've trained myself into for a very long time now is to always take the notes immediately. That's why I take them on my phone. It falls into the same principle that the Getting Things Done system promotes, which is to not store ideas in your head, but to write them down when they occur so that you have space to think, basically. I tend to create new notes for each idea that I have so that I have some sort of distinction. But basically in the note-taking sections, it's really still very much a mess. So it's just to have it all in the same app. That's already what I need. And another good thing about this whole training yourself into taking notes thing is that I found that when you have like small things that you come up with, like a funny line or maybe a cool world building detail, whenever you take them at some point, it adds up into basically you start building the whole world without actively building it, because you've been collecting so many details and so many background features, for example. The task list is really just about collecting the tasks and to know what you should be working on at any given moment. So it's an overview of everything that you still need to do. It's also a way to track what you've already done. And the secret behind the task list, according to Getting Things Done, is to write down the tasks in an action form, so where you already define what it is that you specifically have to do. So you have already decided what it is that you need to do, so that when you get to the point where you actually want to do it, you don't have to process it again and kind of think about what you should be doing, but just to get right into doing it. What I'm trying to do very much is to set the tasks in a way that they can be done within one session, so that because they are very specific and I already know exactly what it is I want to get done, I'm also looking to make sure that they are short enough so that they can be done within 1 week span, so that it isn't overwhelming and that I actually get something done. In the Getting Things Done system, the calendar is the place where you put time-specific tasks. So meetings, for example, stuff that has to happen at that moment. It's not meant to be the place where you put tasks that you want to get done at that day, but which you might be able to push off until tomorrow. Those things, that happens in the task list. Within the task list, you can set specific reminder dates for each task when to do them, but you don't put them in the calendar and then basically lose the task because you haven't done it that day. So within the calendar goes all the stuff that is time specific and cannot be altered in terms of time. It has to be done at a certain time, or it has to be done by a certain date. Now, when it comes to me, because I am writing for myself and I have never published anything, or I don't have any constraints in terms of when I have to have this done, because nobody cares, right? Here, there's a different approach when it comes to deadlines. So there are two types of deadlines. There are deadlines which are given to you by outside forces, and where there's a specific pressure for you to reach those deadlines, because otherwise there will be consequences. And then there are deadlines which are more like milestones of you tracking yourself and trying to progress and getting something done. What I often do in my regular work is to set a specific deadline as a sort of motivational factor, right? So I want to have my first draft finished by the 1st of June this year. And the idea is to basically force myself to be productive so that I reach that deadline. The problem is that nothing happens if I don't reach it. And also I haven't really considered if it's even feasible, because since I don't have experience in actually writing first drafts, I don't really know how much time it takes, right? I can't really plan it. And also because this is a project and not a repetitive task, the difference is that it's basically a learn in progress kind of task that you're doing. So what you want to do instead is to set shorter deadlines as a sort of milestone, so more for motivation. For example, instead of saying I want my whole draft done by the 1st of June this year, I want to have this chapter done in 2 weeks, and to basically focus on short milestone goals where you're focusing only on a small part and only on a short time frame, and to focus on getting this done, and basically using the principle of small additions every day or every week to then get it done, rather than trying to achieve the overall thing by a certain deadline. I don't have meetings or anything like that, but I do want to block specific times when I am writing. So those are, for me, I've set up the plan for myself to have certain times when I want to write for a certain amount of time, and to make it a write with me kind of thing, right, where I'm forced to do it because I have this constraint of wanting to create that kind of video series, and basically have those set times in my calendar which are like meetings, basically meeting with myself to write. And then what I also want to do is to, because I have the task list now, take one task and complete it in a certain amount of time. So my plan is to do 2 tasks each week, and this way basically have a certain amount of time for each task to get it done, and that is the short term progress goal that I'm setting. So for this week, for example, I take 2 tasks and my deadline would be the end of the week, right? So that's kind of the approach that I'm following there. And then to manage my calendar every week, where basically I know when the deadline for a specific task is. And obviously I'm linking this to my videos here because, again, sort of motivational factor, but also giving a sort of time constraint in order to get it done. Okay, so let's talk processing. The processing process is basically the whole appeal from the getting things done system that I really like and that I want to incorporate. The idea is to not feel overwhelmed and to know what it is that you should be doing at a certain time, because you are making all these decisions about the tasks that you have and you're sorting them into specific systems right when you get them. But for the first thing that you want to do is to basically collect everything in one place where from which it can be processed. So we have some sort of inbox. This could be physical if you have everything in notebooks, but the easiest way for me is to do it in digital form, because obviously last time and so on. Because I sorted everything into digital form already, what I'm doing is I'm collecting everything in my OneNote, and from there I want to process it out into whatever system. The process is as follows. So the first thing that I'm looking at is this something that can go into the draft. Into the draft goes everything that is basically a written scene, dialogue, a line that somebody says, which is something that you can use in the draft. So sometimes I write down scenes when I'm out and I have an idea, right, and I put it into some sort of drafty kind of way, but it can go into my first draft because it fits there. Then the other place that it could go is if it is story knowledge. So it is something that I've already decided on and that will stay like this. And for example, if I'm out and I hear a specific name and that's good name for a character and I'm deciding right there, okay, this character will be called that from now on, that can go right into the story knowledge within the OneNote and is set there. If it isn't something that is already completed, like those two things, then it needs some sort of action. And here is the distinction between, do I even want to keep it? If I don't want to keep it, it could either go into the archive where I can store it in case I want to look it up again, but I'm pretty sure I won't need it, or I'll delete it completely. And if it's something that I want to keep but I have to do something with it, then it's probably some sort of action that I have to take. And then where it also could go is into the calendar. In the calendar go all the time-specific things. This could, for example, be, I don't know, if you have like research that you have to do and you have scheduled an interview with someone, where to ask all those specific questions for whatever topic is that you're covering. That would be a time-specific thing which has to happen at a certain time, which you already agreed on or whatever. So those kind of distinctions between the task list and the calendar. But everything that needs to be actionable in some sort of way probably ends up in the task list in the end. Now, going forward, what I'm going to do is to keep up this process. So the note taking, and then from there, weekly sessions where I will transfer the notes into my other systems, turn them into tasks, or obviously store them if it's story knowledge or whatever, but to make it like an ongoing process.
Look to the left.